Welcome to another edition of the Chicks on the Right podcast. Today, we are very excited to have with us Mike Davis, who is the founder of the Article 3 Project. He has served in all three branches of the federal government. He's a practicing attorney, and he is up to speed on all things related to the Trump cases that President Trump is currently facing right now. Namely, as of this recording today on Tuesday, May 28th, we're hearing closing arguments today, and it's possible we could get a verdict as early as this week. What do you expect to see once the jury comes back with their verdict, Mike?
What I expect to see out of this corrupt, partisan, rigged process is an unjust result. I think that this New York judge and these prosecutors and this jury are going to find President Trump guilty, and they're going to find President Trump guilty of a non-crime. He's guilty of running for president of the United States, and I can explain that. Let's look at how this process is partisan and corrupt. You have what happened allegedly was back in 2006. Then private citizen Donald Trump allegedly had an affair with Stormy Daniels, which Stormy Daniels denied up until recently, and President Trump has consistently denied. And in 2017, President Trump settled a nuisance claim. He allegedly paid her money and had her sign a non-disclosure and a confidentiality agreement, so-called hush money, which is very routine for business people and for businesses. I've been a lawyer for nearly 20 years. I have settled these nuisance claims routinely. It's not a crime. It is not a crime to settle a nuisance claim. It's very routine in the legal system. And President Trump's accountants booked this in his private books, not his business books, his private books in 2017 as a legal expense. I don't know what else you would call the settlement of a nuisance claim other than a legal expense, right? So you have this legal expense in 2017, and the prosecutors in this case, this Soros-funded Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg, who campaigned on the fact that he was going to get Trump, looked at this case before and said there's no crime here. So did the prior Manhattan DA before Alvin Bragg, Cy Vance. So did the Federal Election Commission. So did the Manhattan U.S. Attorney. It wasn't until Matthew Colangelo got deployed from the Biden Justice Department. Matthew Colangelo was a senior Biden Justice Department political appointee. He was the acting number 3 during the transition and at the initial first few months of the Biden administration. He was the acting associate attorney general, and then he became the number 2 to the number 3. Matthew Colangelo worked in the Obama Justice Department under Eric Holder and Tom Perez. He worked in the Civil Rights Division. He worked under the Obama Labor Department under Secretary Tom Perez. And then when Tom Perez went to be Obama's DNC chairman, Matthew Colangelo went into the Obama White House to handle labor relations for Obama. And then for the 4 years of the Trump presidency, Colangelo went to New York to the Attorney General's office to run lawfare against President Trump during all 4 of his years. And then Colangelo got tapped to be the acting number 3 in the Biden Justice Department, which is a very important job. You oversee the entire civil side of the Justice Department: civil rights, antitrust, tax, environment, Office of Justice programs, the grants, the COPS program. It's a huge portfolio. Colangelo left that huge portfolio to go be a line attorney in Bragg's office to run this unprecedented criminal prosecution of a former president. The first time ever that there's been a criminal prosecution of a former president. And again, their legal theory is completely bogus. They're trying to say the settlement of a nuisance claim is somehow not a legal expense. That is somehow a bookkeeping misdemeanor under New York law, under New York statute. If you have incorrect entries in your business books, not your personal books, in your business books, those could be bookkeeping misdemeanors. But these were in President Trump's private books, not his business books. And again, a legal expense is a legal expense. I don't know what the hell else you would call that. And this was from 2017. So the statute of limitations is long long since passed on this.
So why is this even happening? And why are there so many people that you see all the talking heads? There's so many people that are just like, oh, he's completely guilty. It's so obvious because we have the testimony of Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen, who are known credible witnesses. So how are people on so opposite sides of this when it seems like, from your perspective as an attorney, and Jonathan Turley and all kinds of other prominent attorneys are saying this is ridiculous? How can there be anybody that doesn't see it's ridiculous?
Because they're partisan. They are Biden Democrat partisan hacks who are engaged in lawfare and election interference against President Trump. And they've taken this bookkeeping entry from 7 years ago. They pretend it's a bookkeeping misdemeanor. The statute of limitations has long since expired, so it's time barred. And so in order to resurrect this zombie case against Trump, the prior Manhattan DA, Cy Vance, the Manhattan U.S. Attorney, the Federal Election Commission, and Alvin Bragg himself declined to bring until Colangelo deployed from the Biden Justice Department to bring the zombie cases. They had to turn this time-barred misdemeanor somehow into a felony. And they're trying to do that by saying that Trump in 2000, I think this is what their current theory is it changes quite a bit. They've never explained their legal allegations, even though the trial is over. They're in closing arguments, they're in jury instructions, and they're about to reach a verdict, a guilty verdict. They have not explained what their legal theory is. And I think the legal theory is something along the lines of that Trump put this in his books in 2017. He committed this bookkeeping misdemeanor for calling a legal expense, and it was to cover up another crime. And the problem is that the Bragg and Colangelo are not explaining what that other crime is. Was it a federal campaign finance violation? If that's the case, why wouldn't the Federal Election Commission do something about this, or the Manhattan U.S. Attorney? And how could a bookkeeping entry in 2017 in your private books affect the election in 2016? So that theory is not really holding up very well. So maybe it's a different legal theory. Maybe it's under New York state statute, this federal, maybe it's state election law, but they haven't explained what it is. They have not told Trump what the legal allegations are. And here's the problem. We're having jury instructions, and it seems like this judge, this Manhattan judge, this Democrat Manhattan judge, Juan Merchan, who donated to Biden in 2020, who donated to another anti-Trump cause. Both of those donations are illegal under New York statute. Judges can't donate to political campaigns. Judge Merchan got reprimanded about this several months ago. We just learned about it. That didn't deter him. His daughter, Lauren Merchan, is raising millions of dollars off of this criminal case over which Judge Merchan, her father, is presiding, requiring Judge Merchan's recusal under New York statute. That's not just me saying this. That is a former federal Clinton judge, went on Caitlin Collins' show on CNN on April 5th and said that he had to recuse. And how did he respond to that? He retaliated against Trump with this illegal, unconstitutional gag order where Trump can't mention the fact that Lauren Merchan is raising millions of dollars off of this. She gets a percentage of this. She has a financial stake in this prosecution, in this trial over which her father's presiding, requiring his recusal. So he's corrupt. He's partisan. He donated to Biden, another anti-Trump cause. The prosecutors are partisan. They're campaigning on getting Trump. They're coming from the Biden Justice Department and the Obama White House. And so this judge is going to give jury instructions today, and he's not even going to tell the jury that the jurors that they have to unanimously agree on what that second crime is. They could just kind of make it up. 3 jurors can think it's a federal campaign violation. 3 jurors could think it's a state campaign violation. 3 jurors can just think it's something else. It seems like the judge is going to even instruct the jury that they don't even have to find that it was a second crime, that it was just a second bad act, and they don't have to agree whether it's a crime or a bad act, what crime it was. Just kind of make it up. And here's the bigger problem: the jury selection process. So you have a corrupt judge and a partisan judge. You have partisan prosecutors. The jury selection process. This jury that's going to consider this case, it comes from a Manhattan jury pool that voted 87% for Joe Biden And they further, Judge Mershon, Matthew Colangelo, and Alvin Bragg further weeded out the the potential jurors who follow Trump on social media. So the 3 people in Manhattan who follow Trump on Truth, but they didn't weed out the Biden social media followers. And so this is a rigged jury pool with rigged jury instructions and a corrupt partisan judge and a partisan prosecution. And then let's look at the witnesses. You have the star witnesses. You have Stormy Daniels, a Venmo porn star who has changed her story several times. She wrote a letter in 2018 saying this didn't happen, and now she's peddling her porn site on Twitter, now X. It's her pinned tweet on Twitter. And she testified that she hates Trump, that she has a vendetta. The other star witness is Michael Cohen, this disbarred attorney, serial perjurer, convicted felon. And now we learn who embezzled from President Trump, hated President Trump, has a bias because President Trump didn't put this clown in the Trump White House after Trump won. He wanted to be the White House counsel, which is just absolutely laughable. And, he's peddling TikTok videos where he's making money trashing Trump on TikTok. Trump is gagged. Trump cannot mention Colangelo. Trump cannot mention Lauren Michon. Trump cannot mention Stormy Daniels. Trump cannot mention Michael Cohen. Even though Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen are trashing him, he can't respond. They should be gagged. Gag orders are supposed to protect the criminal defendant during his trial. A limited time, place, and manner restriction on First Amendment rights, free speech rights to protect the defendant. These Democrat prosecutors and judges have turned the Constitution on its head by gagging the defendant so he can't respond to these attacks. Trump can't even talk about the fact that the Manhattan jury pool voted 87% for Joe Biden, let alone the fact that Mershon and Colangelo and Bragg rigged the jury selection process to bounce the Trump social media followers, but not the Biden. If Trump
do they know that though? Do they I know Trump can't talk about it because of the gag order, but does the jury know all of these relationships and all of the corrupt processes that have taken place to get them where they are?
And they had time away this weekend. I mean, that's the thing. Like anybody that saw the disastrous, cross-examination of Cohen, you think they went home for a long weekend at Memorial Day, and they probably were persuaded again back to like the dark side. That's the thing. They had a long weekend to get anything. If they even remotely thought, okay, well, maybe Trump isn't guilty. You know what I mean? If they were already like these liberal freaks and they were like, well, maybe Trump isn't as bad. Then they had the long weekend to get, you know what I mean? It's like to get jaded again back into that thinking because we've had this time away. So that's the thing. It's like, if they were educated at all on any of this stuff, they're going to go right back to where they were because they've had all this time away from the case. So look, I don't know.
I just don't know if they had an opportunity to know.
Well, and people were like, there are 2 lawyers on this jury panel. So, obviously these lawyers are going to be fair. I don't think people understand how Manhattan lawyers think. First of all, if you're a Trump supporter, there's very little chance a Manhattan law firm is going to hire you, right? So if you're at a Manhattan law firm, you're almost certainly a Democrat. You're almost certainly a liberal. But remember, if Trump mentions any of these things, judge is threatening.
Are there any conservatives in Manhattan? Right.
Donald Trump is probably the only conservative in that courtroom right now, and his attorney. So it's a rigged, partisan, corrupt process.
God, what a joke. I mean, it's just, I know. It's madness. It's absolute madness. So if a guilty verdict does come down, then what? I mean, it's because there are people out here like us who talk about his cases, all 4 of them, actually. And I mean, a lot of us are out here just shaking our heads. I mean, we feel like this emboldens President Trump. We feel like a lot of these, especially this one, which is completely bogus, it emboldens him. It makes him even stronger in the polls. Because a lot of people are looking at this and thinking all the things that you just talked about, Mike. We're just shaking our heads going, oh my God, this is insane. It's all rigged. It's just completely rigged. It's obviously political in nature. It's a witch hunt. And so, I feel like the backlash will be that he will just become more popular. Don't you think?
Yeah, I do think so. And I've predicted that for the last 22 months at the Article 3 Project since the Mar-a-Lago raid. When we've been out there at the Article 3 Project, we've done over 3,500 media hits supporting and defending President Trump. Constant social media, constant opinion pieces. We've explained to the American people very clearly that this is Biden Democrat lawfare and election interference on many different fronts, and the American people see it. And the American people are not going to accept that these Democrats, prosecutors, and judges and witnesses in these Democrat hellholes of New York, D.C., and Atlanta, the American people are not going to let them pick the next president of the United States. The American people get to pick the president of the United States on November 5th, 2024.
So
It's
what's
outrageous.
the appeals process like? So if a guilty verdict comes down, what are his attorney's next moves? And then how likely is it to get turned over on appeal?
I think it's very likely that eventually this will get overturned on appeal. It should. Look, Trump did not commit any crime whatsoever. It's not a crime to settle a nuisance claim, right? There's no crime here, which is so outrageous. They haven't even explained to Trump what the crime is, right? And the trial's over. How can you defend yourself in a criminal trial if you don't know what the crime is? They have not told him what the crime is. And even if there were an alleged crime, they did not come up with the required evidence to show that Trump intended to commit and did commit any crime. That Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen and these other witnesses are just not credible, right? And so, but even like I said, even though that Trump should not have been charged with a crime, he should not be found guilty of a crime, I would be very stunned, actually, if he's not, because of this rigged, partisan, corrupt process. And then I think that this judge is going to impose a prison sentence on Trump. At a minimum, he's going to put Trump on probation and try to control him during the rest of this presidential campaign, whether it's home confinement. Trump has to go into the probation office, every twice a week or whatever it is. And so Trump realistically cannot be on the campaign trail because Judge Merchan, think about it this way. Judge Merchan's daughter, Lauren, is raising millions of dollars right now for the Democrats, for Joe Biden, for Kamala Harris, for Adam Schiff. If he doesn't deliver for Joe Biden and these Democrats, her career is done, right? Democrats eat their own. And so Judge Merchan has to know that. He has to deliver here for the Democrats. If he does not deliver for the Democrats, Lauren Merchan's political career for the Biden Democrats is over. That is a clear bias. That's why he should have recused. That's why he's corrupt. He didn't recuse. He retaliated against Trump with an unconstitutional gag order for even mentioning her name. Even his campaign can't even post a New York Times story mentioning her name or Trump goes to jail. That's insane. That's how
just
bad
so gross.
That's how bad this trial is. And so how does the appellate process work? The jury finds him guilty. The judge convicts. The judge sentences. He almost certainly serves the sentence while the appeal is going forward. And so Trump would appeal to the New York Appellate Division, which is their court of appeals. These New York courts are stacked with leftists. They're the ones who have allowed all this to happen during the motions to dismiss that Trump has filed, saying there's no crime here. The motions to lift the gag order because it's unconstitutional to gag a criminal defendant. And if anyone in America must have the constitutional right to speak out against the prosecutor, against the judge, against the staff, against the witnesses, against the process, against their biases, it is a criminal defendant who has that constitutional right to speak out under the First, Sixth, and 14th Amendments to the Constitution. You don't gag criminal defendants. If a criminal defendant is truly threatening witnesses, witness tampering, or obstructing justice, you charge him with those crimes. But what they've done here is put this illegal, unconstitutional prior restraint on a defendant's constitutional rights to speak out against this rigged, corrupt, partisan process. It's particularly bad when that criminal defendant is a former president, and it's even worse when that former president is the leading presidential candidate. You have a judge, this biased, corrupt judge in New York City, telling a presidential candidate what he can and can't say on the campaign trail, what his campaign can and can't post on social media. Again, if the campaign post a New York Times story mentioning Alvin Bragg, or not Alvin Bragg, Matthew Colangelo, or Lauren Michon, or Michael Cohen, or Stormy Daniels, or this jury pool is 87% Biden voters, Trump goes to jail, according to Judge Merchan's gag order in his.
So the appeals process, I mean, I get that that's got its own issues, but given the fact that this is a presidential race, will there be any consideration or expedition given to the appeals process, or could it be years before that gets sorted? Like, how quickly can we get that sorted out?
That's the point. The Biden Democrats know that this case will eventually get reversed on appeal because there's no crime, and even if there is an alleged crime, there's no evidence, right? And there's no due process, and there's no equal protection. This is one of the case study and one of the worst criminal prosecutions ever from a constitutional perspective. This is what would happen in a third world Marxist hellhole like North Korea or in Zimbabwe. These appeals take years, and they know that. That's why, look, the Biden campaign today is doing a campaign rally in front of the courthouse, right? That just shows you how political this is, right? That they have this whole corrupt, partisan, rigged process because Biden fears Trump will beat Biden like a drum on November 5th, 2024. So they just want to do what you do in Zimbabwe, and that's throw your political opponents in prison. They want to be able to say that Trump is a felon before November 5th, 2024, because then they think that's the one way that Biden can win this election. Fortunately, the American people see through this, and that a lot of people are having the same reaction that you two are, that you're disgusted by this, and it's going to backfire. And the Article 3 project is going to make sure that happens. I'm sorry?
Half of us do. Half of us are disgusted by it. The other half are delighted. They're delighted to say, oh, he's been indicted, and he's this, and he's already a criminal. I mean, they're already naming him as a criminal when he's not. I mean, half of the country, I think, is delighted by this. And then the other half were like, this is disgusting.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if half is I think that there are the hardcore Democrats, about 45% of the country, who might be delighted by this. And I think that between like 55 and 60% of the American people are really repulsed by this. And
I hope so.
It's backfiring because you're seeing people that don't pay attention to politics, the people who just show up on election day and vote and don't pay attention. They're tuning into this, and they do not like what they see. And you know who particularly does not like what they see? Black men. Remember that's why I think Joe Biden is bleeding out support, his black support. Black Americans make up 13% of the population. They vote 95% Democrat, right? And so Democrats take them for granted. Republicans ignore them. But I would say this, I always remind Republicans don't need to win the black vote. We just need to win 15 or 20% of the black vote instead of 5% of the black vote. Because if Republicans win 15% instead of 5%, that's a 1.3% swing in the overall election. That if Republicans are winning 15% of the black vote, it is very hard for Democrats to win. If Republicans win 20% of the black vote, it is impossible for Democrats to win.
Yeah. I think it's a terrifying abuse of power. I look at it as, and I know Trump says this a lot, if they can do it to him, they can do it to me. They absolutely could do this to me. I am a nobody. And the fact that they are doing this to him, and it is just on display for everybody to see. Everybody in this country should be repulsed by it. Everybody, because they could do this to any of us if they can do it just on display.
Yeah, they already are. They're not just going after Trump. They're going after his top aides, like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. Peter Navarro is sitting in prison right now. Steve Bannon's going to prison. They're going after his attorneys, like Jeff Clark and John Eastman. They're going after his supporters on January 6th, right? Even the people who were there peacefully and merely allegedly trespassed onto the Capitol lawn, not even into the Capitol, are being charged. Grandmas who so-called trespassed and took selfies. They're going after parents outraged by gender chaos and the resulting rapes in high school bathrooms. They're going after Christians, little old Christian ladies who are praying outside of abortion clinics while they give amnesty to Biden and Hunter and James Biden, every scumbag Biden who's taken tens of millions of dollars from China, from Russia, from Ukraine, from Kazakhstan, all the worst trouble spots around the world have every Biden family member, it seems, except for the 6-year-old granddaughter who they finally claimed under political pressure on their payroll. James Comer has tracked over $20 million from these bad foreign countries into the Biden's bank accounts. They give amnesty to BLM and Antifa rioters, the much more deadly and destructive BLM and Antifa rioters, $2 billion in damage, dozens of people killed, just terror around the country. The Portland federal courthouse attacked on a nightly basis for months. Senator Rand Paul attacked as he's leaving the White House. The Secret Service guard station torched. St. George Church torched. Amnesty for them. Amnesty for the abortion industry activists who are terrorizing Supreme Court justices and their families outside of their homes, doxing them and terrorizing them outside of their homes. Obstruction of justice under federal statute. You don't have a First Amendment right to protest outside of anyone's home because they can't escape. You certainly don't have the First Amendment right to obstruct justice by threatening, intimidating judges and their families outside of their homes, right? This is doxing judges leads to deadly consequences. It almost led to the assassination of Kavanaugh, his wife Ashley, their 2 teenage daughters. It led to the assassination of Judge Esther Salas and her husband's son Daniel. Mark got seriously wounded when they doxed her. This is a deadly game that they're playing. The Hamas terrorists who are terrorizing Jewish Americans, particularly Jewish students on college campuses, the Biden Justice Department gives them amnesty while they politicize and weaponize the Justice Department and these Democrat AGs and DAs to go after Trump, his top aides, his lawyers, his supporters, parents, Christians. This is unacceptable. These are republic-ending tactics by Biden and these Democrats. This is how the Roman Republic fell. It was,
and then they keep trying to say, well, "I'm fighting to save democracy." And I'm like, what?
He's in the world. He's running on it. He's running on that platform of "I'm going to save democracy." It's disgusting. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's going to save democracy by throwing your opponent off the ballot
right.
in Colorado and Maine, so the voters don't even have a choice. We're going to save democracy, according to Biden, by destroying democracy.
Yeah. So, okay. So before we let you go, because now that you've explained like how you think this is going to go and that it could be years before it's overturned on appeal, let's assume that happens at some point. Will there be, or can there be, countersuits or some sort of consequences for the players involved? Can the judge be, I don't know, can there be some sort of accountability for him to even be doing this, to have not recused himself, for example? Like, will there be anything that can be done about how corrupt this whole thing has been?
100%. And
really?
The Article 3 project is working on this now. So are great congresspeople like Elise Stefanik from New York. There are bar complaints being filed. There are judicial misconduct complaints being filed. There are going to be civil lawsuits filed. And then when the Trump 47 Justice Department is back, on day one, they need to open a criminal probe because this is an obvious criminal conspiracy by President Biden, his attorneys like Jonathan Sue, his attorney general, Jack Smith, Matthew Colangelo, Jay Bratz, Tish James, Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, Alvin Bragg. The list goes on and on. These judges. This is a criminal conspiracy to violate President Trump's federal civil rights. Conspiracy against rights under 18 U.S.C. 241. It's not just Trump. It's his top aides, his lawyers, his supporters, his January 6 supporters. This is a criminal conspiracy that the Biden Justice Department, these judges, these witnesses, these DAs, their staffs, this is a criminal conspiracy to violate the civil rights of President Trump and his supporters and his aides and his lawyers, because they have politicized and weaponized our justice system to go after Trump with bogus charges. They don't care if the charges are lawful or not with illegal gag orders. There are going to be severe legal, political, and financial consequences come January 20th, 2025. So I would say to all these Biden operatives inside and outside of government, like Andrew Weissman, I would say lawyer up, because there's going to be a reckoning.
Good.
I love that. And actually, that's the perfect way to close out this show with you, because I wanted to end it on sort of a high note, and that helps me a little bit, because man, it was doom and gloom in there for a little bit, Mike. And I know it's bad, but I needed something to hang on to, and accountability is something to hang on to. And I know that's what Article 3 Project is all about. Where can people learn more about that and about you?
Thank you very much. It's article3project.org, article number 3project.org. You can take action there. One of the action items is contacting your members of the House and the Senate to defund this lawfare until after the election. You can donate there. We're lean and mean. We'll spend the money well. And you can follow us on social media at article3project.org.
Thank you so much for being with us and giving us the rundown, because this is really, really helpful for those of us who aren't as plugged in every single day as you are. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.